Let me welcome Niraj, who is our speaker for today's session, the first session. And Niraj, over to you.
Hey, Biplab. Thanks a lot. So, thanks, friends, for joining. I know that it's afternoon out there and it's a working day today. But thanks for taking the time out. I hope that our next hour is well spent. So let me just quickly share a few polls just to gauge the attendees' background and what they are. So just wanted to know what currently best describes your job profile.
Niraj, I doubt we hear you. So
Sorry.
Could you just make sure that your microphone is working? You might want to do the audio poll once again to make sure that people can hear you or not.
Okay. Am I any better now, or how is it? Okay. So I think we have a dev audience primarily. And just to understand, maybe your current understanding of the Azure Media Services or the Azure platform in general. Just wanted to understand that, have you heard of Azure Media Services, or have you worked with any of the other Azure services? Maybe you might have done a POC on the typically a weekend hack around AMS, or are you currently using AMS for production? Or no, you are new to both AMS and Azure. Okay, no worries. Okay, so I think with that input, let's get started. And what I would do is that I would just quickly share my screen. So my name is Niraj, and I'm a Microsoft MVP for Windows Azure, and my Twitter handle is Niraj Rules. And what we are going to do today is I'm just going to provide a quick introduction to Azure Media Services. As you would know, that Azure Media Services is part of the larger Azure ecosystem, wherein you have got multiple services. Of course, you have the infrastructure as a service platform and the software as a service, maybe more of Office 365 coming into Azure. But within the platform as a service itself, you have got your mobile services, your media services, and a lot of other platforms. And today, what I'm going to discuss precisely is the Azure Media Services and what is media services and how can we leverage that in our applications. So today, if you look at it, right, the typical media content workflow, what most of us are aware of. What we typically do, either we have our mobile phones or we have our handy cam, and then we record, right? We just recorded either a friend's wedding, or maybe it might be a birthday, or it might be office party, or maybe some flash mob, and we just record with our handy cam or with our mobile device, and we just upload it. We go to YouTube, we go to Vimeo, or any of the other providers, and we just click the upload button and we just upload it. So that's what a typical understanding of a media content workflow is. But if you look at what happens beneath, right, it's pretty interesting. So what happens when you record something on your handy cam? It's typically a mezzanine asset, a raw asset what you have. Then the first step what you got to do is that you got to ingest that asset onto a storage server. right? So you got to move it from your flash memory back to a backend storage, and this backend storage would make your file available for the larger audience, and that asset what you're going to upload, that's hardly consumable, right? It needs to undergo some sort of encoding, some sort of a transformation. Now the typical encodings you would see these days, and I would discuss that in more detail, is around the adaptive adaptive bitrate streaming. And what I mean by adaptive bitrate streaming is that your various clients are going to access your media from different devices and with different connectivity. So if I'm accessing your media content from my home, maybe I would preferably view it around 2 Mbps speed, versus when I'm viewing it from a corporate network, which would give me higher bandwidth. It could be go up to 10 Mbps or 15 Mbps or even more. And maybe when I'm viewing it from a mobile device, maybe while I'm with friends out somewhere, and then the bitrate would vary a lot. So, and it also depends upon which type of device you are holding. It could be Android device, it could be iOS, it could be a Windows phone. So your encoding would also vary depending upon all those options. So it is pretty involved processing there. And once you get an encoded asset, you are still not done. You need to ensure, and this may not be applicable, to all the media content you have, but typically some of the media contents, right, you would like to protect them. You would like to restrict the access to who all can access your video. You want to might just put it under some licensing mode. The people who have got a valid license, right, would just be able to access that. And then the final thing is like making those streams, those assets available over origin server and handing over a URL. And then those URLs also at times could have access policies and other things attached to them. And finally, that's where the media actually reaches out to an end user through that hosting platform. So one might feel like, that do I really need to understand, all of this? I typically don't do self-hosting. I'm not an enterprise. And do I need to really understand all of this? Like, isn't this all abstracted for me by YouTube? Now, the answer could be that while, yes, YouTube, Vimeo, and a lot of other sites out there, right, they sort of abstract this entire processing for you. But this could be good, and this could be bad. Now, a lot of times, right, why it is bad. So let's say that today, if I'm not hosting with YouTube and I'm doing some self-hosting, I've got some benefits. The first benefit is that you have got full control over your content, right? It sort of gives you more authenticity with your viewers, that you've invested into a platform which sort of speaks of itself, and it is not a YouTube player serving out. There is no traffic loss. Many times you would have seen that you have created a content. Let's say that I've created a content around cooking. Let's say that I'm interested in cooking, and I've made a Mexican dish, right? So I've made a Mexican dish. I put it on YouTube, and the moment I put it on YouTube, after my video gets over, there are other chefs who would have created their own Mexican dishes, and my traffic gets diverted to their traffic. Or there are a lot of other videos on the sidelines of YouTube, which would take away my traffic, and I would really lose them. So maybe the amount of effort what I've put in just getting that viewer, I would easily end up losing it. The branding, right? The branding is not quite there. I can't really have that branding, that there could be multiple ads being played somewhere or the other. So typically you don't have much control over the content what you have. The ads, right? You can have more targeted ads. Let's say that you are not really sure that what YouTube is going to play, when you are showcasing how to prepare a Mexican dish, but rather what you can do if you had the control over the content is that you could have you could place some targeted ads around the ingredients of some of the providers what you are using, right? So if you're using a typical a sauce or a typical pasta or uh, a pinwheel or whatever, right? So maybe you can have those targeted ads and which are much more relevant to your audience. So there are definitely pros, right? There is a lot what you get benefited from of posting these videos on your own versus just outsourcing that to YouTube, right? Of course, there are cons of it that you need to manage the entire workflow, what I just spoke about. It's not trivial. You got to worry about the infrastructure because you need to invest in procuring that infrastructure where you can have your storage, your origin servers, your encoding, your protection. So your cost, SLAs, the scale, right? Maybe if you have got more viewers who are really becoming interested in your cooking and maybe your other hobbies, what you are sharing, then you would need that scale also. So this is where Windows Azure Media Services comes in. Windows Azure Media Services is a cloud-based media platform, which you get all the economies of scale, right? It's scalable, it's pay-as-you-go, it's built on proven technologies. So while you just might feel that you have not really heard of Azure Media Services earlier, it's all the IIS Media Services, the Microsoft Expression Encoder, and the proven Windows Azure platform, which is widely used. It supports end-to-end workflow, so you can ingest your content, you can encode it, you can protect it, you can deliver it. So the entire thing is covered by the media services platform. There is also upcoming support of some niche things like live streaming and others. What you would see shortly being there, supported by the platform, and what's more that you have got REST APIs available for development, and you have what wrappers on top of it, more in terms of .NET and Java SDKs, which you can leverage. So it's pretty comprehensive, proven, and pretty open-ended with the REST APIs, and sort of really easy to use. And I would again like show you that how can you take the content, how can you ingest that into the media services. So looking at the architecture of media services, this is what it looks today, right? If you see all the color-coded ones, the green color, the dark green, these features are sort of released right now. These are like ingesting your asset, encoding it, on-demand origin, content production, job scheduling, and others. And there are a set of other features which are coming soon. And this has been a while though, I have been personally waiting for these features to sort of come out for last year or so, in fact. But hoping that maybe I think by end of this quarter or early next quarter, we should have some of this available, which includes the live streaming, what I was mentioning, more around the identity management in terms of security. There is some available for advertising right now, but analytics and others, I think they would show up. And the best part of this is, right, and maybe on the right hand side, you see all the client libraries which are supported. And the best part of this is the larger ecosystem, what Microsoft is driving in the media space. For instance, if you want to ingest your assets, right? So let's say that you have got terabytes and petabytes of data, maybe the content what you have, right? You have got your marketing content, your vendor content, your training content, internal, external, and so on and so forth. So it's how would you move this content into cloud? You need some real good optimization to push this content out into cloud. So that's where you can use Aspera, for instance. So like that, you have got multiple options. Let's say that you are planning to protect your content through some watermarking so that nobody is able to you don't lose the authenticity of it. So over there you have got option of using like Civolution. If you want a player-ready DRM solution, You can use EasyDRM and others, right? So it's a larger ecosystem. You've got Valves out there, Digital Rapids, Think Analytics, and so on and so forth. So having said those, right, let's quickly look at the portal, the Windows Azure Media Services portal, and what that has to offer to us. So as you would see, let me just delete the content what I already have, and we'll upload it again. So what I basically have over here is I've got the Windows Azure portal, and this portal is accessible through manage.windowsazure.com. And when you go to manage.windowsazure.com, you can log in there with your credentials. It could be your live ID, or it could be your AD credentials as well, and then click on New, and in the app services, the first thing you would find is Media Service. And on the Media Service, click on Quick Create, and you can just give it some name, let's say Niraj Media Service, right? And choose the location where you want. So let's say that I'm in East US right now, and then you can select a storage account. So if you want to create a new storage account, you can do that, and then you can just say OK. So this is going to create a new media service and also a new storage account. Now, this new storage account, as you would assume, that as I mentioned earlier, that the first step is sort of ingest, and maybe everything, whatever happens, right, as part of media, storage is sort of quintessential component of it. So the media services uses the underlying Azure storage, typically the Azure Blob storage, to store all the content in there. So once you hit OK, right, you would get something like NR Media Services. So I've given the name of the media services, NR Media Services, and the storage for me is the NR Media Services storage. Excuse me. So you would see that right now the storage is empty, and there is nothing in there. Neither nothing is there in the media services. The media services, you would look at the content, and the content you would see that there is nothing, right? I just deleted some of the content what I already had. In the dashboard, you can again look at various options. Of course, you have got the monitoring here, and now you can configure some of this, as I would show you later. But here it shows that your storage account is your NR Media Services storage, your subscription name, your subscription ID, your media services ID, a quick link to download the SDK. You can also do it via NuGet packages, as I would show you. And also just that here are your manage keys. So you would use this manage keys, the account name and the key, to connect to the Azure Media Services from your application, right? So I'll showcase you some of this. And if you happen to ever modify your storage key, then you would have to typically come here and just synchronize it back, right? So as I mentioned earlier, that the media services is predominantly dependent on the underlying storage for most of its features. It's essential that the media services has got access to the storage key, and the way you do that right now is whenever you modify the storage key, by default it's all connected, but whenever you are modifying that, it's your responsibility, or the onus is on you to just come back here and synchronize your primary key or your secondary key, whichever is relevant. So let's ingest our content, right? So right now I just showed over here that I don't have any content right in here, right? So let's see that how can we insert a content, right? Or upload a content. Now upload could be as simple as I just click on the portal and I just do it. From here I can choose the content from here, but ideally you would like to do it from your Visual Studio or more of programmatic access. Now you can do this using REST APIs, or you can do this using the Microsoft.NET SDK. Now what I've done right now is that I've created a blank application. So this is more like a console app. There is nothing in it right now. The only thing what I've done is that I've gone to manage NuGet packages, and in here if you search for media services, so let me just type here media services, and you see that the .NET SDK is right here, and the current version is 3.0.0.3, which I've installed right now, right? So that's all what I have done. So just to keep it simple and easy, what I've done is that I've kept some code snippets handy here. So let me just copy this code snippet. So what I'm doing here is there is a class available in the SDK, which is under the namespace media services client, and I'm providing the strings, the name of the media services account and the key, as you would see here in the dashboard. So this is my media services. I'm sorry. So sorry. This is the NR Media Services account name, and this is the key. All right. So I've just copied them, and I've moved them here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an asset, right? So in this case, I'm going to create an asset by name. Let's just call it as Azure, right? So this is a asset pertaining to the Azure platform, and you have got various options. So when you just upload the asset to the Azure storage, how would you like to store the asset? Would you like to store it without any encryption, or would you like to apply a storage level encryption, or you would like to apply a common encryption, which is more from a play ready perspective, and then you also have got envelope encryption protected, which is more from the Apple's HLS format. So I'm just selecting right now, let the content be storage encrypted so that nobody is able to view it. And then I'm going to create an asset, right? So I've created that here, right? And then asset typically can have multiple asset files. So asset files are typically your media files. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the interview2.wmv. So if I just play this interview2.wmv, you would see that this is my media player, and I'm just playing this, right? So this is the content which I'm going to upload. And here you can capture the upload progress change, and which would typically show you that how much of the upload is done. So you can just say that the let's just see the progress, right? So again, pretty simple. I'm creating a cloud media context, which is kind of the facade, the workhorse of the entire media services platform, and everything sort of revolves around the cloud media context. And you have got assets, and assets have got your media files. So assets have got you can have multiple things around asset. Of course, asset file is just one of it. You have got locators. The locators will sort of help you locate the asset. What is the URL? How can you reach to it? You've got various other the underlying storage accounts, and typically a CMC, right? The cloud media context can also have multiple storage accounts. Now you are maybe more in terms of bandwidth, because there are also throttling limits applied on the Windows Azure storage. So you might want to like spread your content across multiple storage accounts. So a lot of options are possible there. So I've created a cloud media context, I've created an asset out of it, and then I've got an asset file which is attached to the asset, and then I'm just uploading that file, calling the upload method. So let's see what happens. So I'm running the program right now. And you would see some sort of a percentage over here as in when the file is actually being uploaded. Now this is a pretty small file, just around 9 seconds of video. Okay, so as you would see, it's done, right? Now if I come back to the portal and if I come to the content right here, you would see that I've got my asset being created here called Azure. And if I go to the storage, I go to my NR Media Services storage and the containers in there, you would see that the asset is right here. And that has got the WMV file which we created. Right? Pretty simple. So that was like pretty basic demo of the Azure Media Services portal. I'm so sorry. And how would you ingest an asset into it? Right? Any questions at this point in time? Feel free to use your Q&A panel. So what I've done so far is I had a local asset, right, a digital asset, and I've just uploaded that to cloud. Now let's understand the encoding. Right, now I mentioned that why you would encode, but just let's quickly go through what is encoding and why you might need it. So generally, encoding videos is necessary. Your raw videos, they need vast storage, right? For instance, if you have an uncompressed 1080 IHD video, that would be around 400 gigabytes per hour of recording. Right, so that's too huge of a file to manage, to transfer, right, to take backups of, etc. So codecs are responsible for encoding your audio video. And codecs typically, like maybe the encoding process itself has got this codecs and the containers. Now codec is sort of the heart, the actual part which is responsible for encoding. So it sort of encodes, it takes a digital asset and then encodes it into a specific format. Now you can use a lossy codec. Now lossy codecs are maybe they might really save you on the space, but you might lose some bit of your data. So your image might be a little distorted, or the resolution might look a little bad. And you also have got lossless codecs out there, which the algorithms itself are so superior that while you get the compression, maybe in terms of your storage, you don't compromise on the overall quality. And then you have got the containers. Containers are basically the file extensions. They are the outer, maybe your AVIs, your MP4s, your WMVs. These are the containers. And then you have got codecs like H264. You have got your Google's VP8, your MPEG-2, and the VC1 from Microsoft. So there are various codecs. Now containers, they are specific, like maybe pertaining to a codec. It could be pertaining to a platform. Like Microsoft has got WMV, MOV from Apple. So if you have got two containers and they both are supporting an underlying codec, let's say that maybe H264 is supported by MP4 and also by Google, then there is quite a possibility that you can easily convert from one container to another container. So moving from one container to another container is a lot easier than taking from, or rather moving from one codec to another codec. So you see some softwares out there, open source, you just provide them a file with a specific container format, and what they would do typically is they would take the underlying codec and they would bundle it into a different container format. So that's how the typically the role of codecs and container is. Now, I mentioned this earlier, right? Early days when the media was actually available on the internet, it was all progressive download. Now maybe you would start downloading a file, maybe in your media player, and then you would pause it so that it really buffers up to the extent where you can view it pretty smooth. And then that progressive download gave way to traditional streaming. So in streaming, you don't have to really wait till the file is actually downloaded. You can, at any point in time, you can move your cursor and you can seek a specific position what you want to view. So there are small packets which are transferred to you at any given point in time, and then you can play and pause. So you can perform all those operations, but maybe more of on a streaming mode. And then you have the current trend in the market, which is more around the adaptive streaming. Now, adaptive streaming, as I mentioned, has got capabilities of storing the same video into multiple formats. So you have got your 720p, you got 1080p. You might have something lower than that. Now, maybe 300 or 360, or maybe 400 range audio video combination, or whatever, right? So what happens over here, that depending upon the bandwidth what you have available at a given point in time, right, automatically your server and your client can adapt to a given bit rate. So at one point in time, you would be viewing your video at 720p. At another point in time, you could have more clarity with 1080p, depending upon what resolution you are running on and others. So I'll show you an example as to how that can be done with media services. It's pretty easy. So there are various formats, right? There are various standards what each of the vendor has. So Microsoft has got smooth streaming, Apple HLS, the HTTP live streaming from Apple. Adobe has got HTTP dynamic streaming. But the good news is that now MPEG is coming up with an international standard called DASH, and which is dynamic adaptive streaming over HTTP. And this standard would make it possible now for us. So instead of you serving multiple customers and managing all the different formats, you managing the smooth streaming and the live streaming and the dynamic streaming. Going forward, more and more devices, browsers, etc. would be adopting Dash, and then you have to just maintain one format or one content, and that would work across all the devices and browsers. So MPEG Dash is something which you should be looking forward to if you are in the media space. So let's see a quick demo as to know how can we achieve smooth streaming, right? So again, I would just go and I will just pick up a code snippet from here. Which is pretty simple. Yeah. So I'll comment what I've already done. So I'll comment the asset part, which is already been created. And now what I'm going to do is, so I've already uploaded an asset by name Azure. So I'm going to find that asset, and then I'm going to create a job. Now jobs are typically your encoding jobs. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to say that I need to perform a smooth streaming SS, and that's the encoding job what I want to perform. So let's call it as smooth streaming encoding, right? And how do you perform encoding job? So encoding job typically has got a processor. So you create a job first, like how I've created. And again, as I mentioned earlier, your workhorse class is your cloud media context. So you just say cloud media context.jobs.create. And jobs typically has a task. And then in the task, you can add an input asset and an output asset, and pretty much you are done by submitting the job. So that's the flow. So just to repeat, you have got your workhorse class, the cloud media context, which has got a jobs collection, right? And then you can just say jobs.create, create a new job, add a task to the job, right? So you're adding a task, and the task you would add the inputs and the output assets, and then you would submit the job to the media services, and that would be executed and done. So a step there, like when you perform a task, right? You can specify that no, this is the smooth streaming encoding task what you want to perform, and there are two things what you need to give over here. One is the processor. So there are different media processors available with the Azure Media Services. One of them is the Windows Azure Media Encoder. Other one is the Windows Azure Media Encryptor. You've got a packager as well, and and the storage encryptor. So depending upon what task you are performing, you can pick up a specific processor. In this case, I'm going to pick up the Windows Azure Media Encoder because I'm going to encode to smooth streaming. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to specify a specific format. So let's say that I want to take H264 smooth streaming, right? And you can specify anything else here. So this is called as a preset, right? And maybe in my PPT here, I've got I've got a link which again, like PPT is shared as part of the handouts. If I just open this, you would see over here the media services encoder system preset. So you've got your VC1, you've got audio coding standard H264. So you can just pick up any of this. So right now what I'm picking up, I have just picked up the H264 smooth streaming 1080p, right? So that's what I've picked up here, right? And then I've given task options as protected configuration, and I'm pretty much set. So as you would expect that when I execute this, so let's execute this, and these are the various processors which are there, right? So I'm using this one, the 3.5, which is the latest media encoder processor. So now the job has been submitted. If I go back to the portal, go back to the media services, and in my media services, if I go to jobs, now this is going to show me all the jobs which are currently active. Of course, you can monitor your jobs with the SDK also, but right now you would see that that this is my encoding task, right? And which is not yet started. So I think it's starting now. You would see 1% right here. So you would need to give it some time for it to complete. But if you want to, let's say, enhance the speed, right? Like you are finding that this is a little slow and the processing should be a lot faster, then you have got those options, right? So you can go to the encoding here and you can reserve the capacity. Now per unit, you would pay around $99 per month, if I remember correctly, but you can always go to the windowsazure.com pricing and know that would give you more details. So these are the different encoding units what you have. Look at your origins. So origins are more like, once you have created content, right, and you want to avail it to the larger audience, you would need the origin server. and you can create the origins, additional origins from here, and depending upon how many origins you would have, you would be charged accordingly. And again, here it's possible to have reserved units. So you can have the configure and scale here as well. And there are a lot of options here if you're using Akamai. When Azure CDN, although support is not there right now, I think it's work in progress, but you can use that. And here are other ones where you can actually reserve units how much ever you want. And as you would see, right, per unit you get around 200 Mbps of bandwidth, which is pretty decent. So this is where you can actually improvise your job processing, your overall bandwidth for serving your users. So going back to the jobs, right? Let's see if the job got over. Yeah, and you would see that our SS encoding task is actually over now. And if I go back to the content, you would see here Azure Smooth Streaming. Now it's not a published URL, but you can also publish a URL. There is something called as locators. Now locators, you can define an access policy that this URL should be available only for a year or so, or no, for 5 days to a specific given customer. So there are a lot of access policies, what you can control. But for this, I'll just keep it simple, and I'll just publish it from the portal right here. So I would say that yes, I would like to publish the Azure Smooth Streaming, and this is the publish URL. So now I'll just copy this. So this is the published URL now. I have just copied that. And there is a test player, right? So this is there is a smooth streaming test player, which I think I would have to copy it again. So this is the smooth streaming player from wadigo.com, which I'm going to use. And I would also copy my URL here. And you can always go and you can enter the URL there, and you can just say set source and play, and let's see what happens. Now you will see that there is certain the clarity which is not quite there, because I've really enhanced the video to 1080p. Right. But you will see that the overall picture is much more larger now. Like it's fitting the entire screen size. So, and if you would see over here now. Let me just play it once again. That you would see that the varying bitrate over here. So I'm at 1.5, 650. Sometimes it's going to 2.25. So you will see the various bit rates, the downloading and all that. So this is smooth streaming. Now the further proof of that is I can actually go to my storage, and in the storage media services containers, you would see that the asset which got recently created was the first one. And in here you have got so many different files out there, right? You have got your manifest, but also your 650 kbps, 6000, you have got 4700, 400, 3400. So these are the various bit rates which are available for my end customer. So depending upon where the end customer is coming from, if somebody's in their corporate network, maybe I would serve them at 600k kbps, 6000 kbps, and somebody is like on their mobile devices, maybe I would serve them as at 400 kbps, right? So it really provides that flexibility, the adaptive bitrate streaming, what I was mentioning. Going back to the PPT, right? Now you just would think that, okay, I converted this to a smooth streaming, and smooth streaming is specific to Microsoft, and then if I need Apple devices, if I want to stream this to iPad or iPhone, would this work? Smooth streaming won't, but then there is HLS format which would work, and the same case would apply, for Adobe. Adobe has got a different format. So one way is that you can create so many different files and formats for each of the devices. Alternatively, there is MPEG dash, what I mentioned. So you can use that. And also in addition to dash, there is another interesting feature what is provided by Azure Media Services called dynamic packaging. Now dynamic packaging is very interesting. You have got your encoding, and then you can see here, right, the left hand side. So left hand side is how I did it right now. So I had an asset, then I encoded that, and then I packaged it into a smooth asset, and then maybe it is going to go to Windows and Xbox, right, because they all understand smooth streaming. Now if I need to go to iOS, then I need to create another, I need to again package it into an HLS, right, which is native no to iOS. Or what you can do is that you can just create a multi-bitrate MP4 asset, and then you can live it to the Windows Azure Media Services dynamic packaging, and the dynamic packaging would now on the fly create that specific format and send it over to the specific device. So the benefit what you get is that you just pay for the storage cost of what's there on your storage asset, on your storage account, which is your multi-bitrate MP4 asset, and you don't necessarily end up paying for different assets as visible here. And also it's optimal. You don't have to really worry about conversions and all that. You just do a one-time conversion, just generate your multi-bitrate MP4 asset, and you are done. And as you would see, the down here, there are just various appending file formats what you can use, and you can easily be done with it. Now I don't think so we have much time left, but I'll just quickly spend 2 minutes on the digital rights management. So digital rights management, as I mentioned earlier, it's more around the protection, and protection more in terms of securing your digital assets. You want a licensing be in place. This could be pay per movies scenario, or this could be your company's presentation, or some kind of distance learning solution what you have put in place. It's kind of a specific course what you're providing access to your end users, and so on and so forth, right? So even though the basic authentication is more around you log in into a portal, but what if the content gets downloaded and gets circulated? So you want the protection given to the content, and that's where your DRM, the digital rights management, comes into picture. So in here, as you would see, you have got your license data, your domain certificates, your packaged content, right? So these are all the server-side aspects of it. So whenever the clients they want to connect, they would request for a license, and the license would be issued to them. This could be a domain controller if it's part of your corporate network, right? That's how the authentication would happen, and then eventually the content would be distributed or delivered to the client. And then you have got other options like metering, just really find out how much of data has been served to that user, and you can have various knobs and controls there. Now the easiest way to see this in action, now I had a demo also to showcase this to you, but I would just keep it simple. So if you are running IE 11 on Windows 8.1, and if you just go to ie.microsoft.com/test drive, let me open that. Now unfortunately I'm running on Windows 7, so I really don't have that feature, but no, you would see over here that the current content is unlocked, and then you have got Sintel Taylor, which is a locked content. So this is this pretty much gives you a feeling as to how this would work. So you can just click on this, and this is the standard, the canonical Big Buck Bunny video, and again you can adjust the bit rates here, and you can see the difference And this is again around the adaptive bitrate streaming, what I just spoke about. And here you can also see the protected content which you would be able to play. So if you open this URL right now on a Windows 8.1 device, i.e. microsoft.com/test drive, and just go to HTML5, and you just find this Azure Media Services and Play-Ready Content Protection. You would be able to see these videos and just play around. So I think in benefit of time, I would just summarize the presentation. So as you would seen, right, definitely the media industry is fast growing. I think a lot of corporates are looking for alternative solutions. While YouTube is sort of becoming a viable option more in terms of the cost and other effectiveness. But I think if you really want to monetize your content, want to have a good hold over your content, you might want to look at the self-hosting options. Self-hosting more in the sense like getting out of the third-party hosting providers and sort of really owning up your content, right? It is not only applicable to enterprises but also to end users. And that's where the Azure Media Services comes in more as a powerful, scalable, cost-effective platform for you. And the promise they have is any media on any device delivered from cloud, right? So with the features like dynamic packaging, the support for MPEG Dash, that's the direction where the platform is heading. And you would see a lot of features, what I just spoke about earlier, like live streaming and others being added soon. So it's pretty much end-to-end support, maybe in terms of ingest, encoding, streaming, protect, and delivering those experiences to the end user. So that's in a nutshell, maybe the introduction or the today's session around the Azure Media Services. And once again, I would like to thank thanks for joining and taking out the time. Again, I'm just looking if there are any questions, so feel free to use the Q&A panel. This is my email address, neeraj@indiamvps.net. So feel free to ping me or just drop me an email if you have any queries even after the session. You can also refer to my blog on neerajtools.wordpress.com. If you I do keep on updating a lot about not only about Azure but about a few of the other tidbits what I want to share and what I come across in my daily work. So I'll pause here just to see if there are any questions, and if not, once again, thanks for joining, and I look forward to interacting with you again. Thank you. Biplab, over to you.
Thanks, Neeraj. Thanks for delivering the session. Hopefully it was, interesting for attendees. And just to let you know that we have a survey which is going to come out to you directly via email. So we request all the attendees to participate in the survey. It's going to help us to plan for future sessions. And also to remember that there are other sessions which are also going on. There are async programming which has just started, and there is a Windows 8 session which has just started. So if you are planning to attend any of those sessions, here's the direct link. So you might want to just click on it, or actually it's not a clickable link, but you might want to just go to that link and attend the next session. Thanks a lot once again, and have a wonderful day. Thanks, Neeraj.
Thank you. Thanks, Biplab.
Bye.